Good morning, everyone, and it's happy St. Patrick's Day if you are joining us live for today's weekend workshop. It's so great to have you with us. And so today we have a case study on a Kickstarter project, which is being brought to you by Jess and Sydney today in just a few moments. So we're so grateful that they have agreed to share their story with us. And so today we are going to invite you to just share as we get started today in the Zoom chat where you might be connecting from. And if you have a business, go ahead and let us know what the name of that business is. And if there's a link to that business that you would love to share as well, we'd like to connect with you. Of course, a part of all of our weekend workshops is that networking aspect. So welcome to everyone joining us. I know there will be a few more joining us as well. So actually, Sydney today is going to be doing the land acknowledgement. Many of you know that I do that typically at the start of our workshops, but I'm excited today that Sydney will be doing that because I always love to hear land acknowledgements from other perspectives as well. So I am going to turn over the virtual microphone to Sydney and Jess at this time, and we're going to dive right into today's workshop. I'm so excited you've joined us. If you would like to hold your questions, I think that if you want to drop questions into the Zoom chat, I think that's what we actually discussed. We'll do our best to address those throughout the workshop. However, there will be some time at the end as well for a live Q&A if anyone would like to, take part at that time as well. All right, so Sydney, over to you. I'll let you take it from here. Thanks so much for joining us.
Perfect. Can everyone hear me okay? Great. Okay, so before we begin, I want to offer a land acknowledgement. So let's use this time together to recognize the land and territories that we are all living on and using as our own. So I'm currently in Toronto, which is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. And it's now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. So the City of Toronto also acknowledges that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13, signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit, as well as the Williams Treaty, signed with multiple Mississauga and Chippewa bands. So if we're ready to go, just kind of go into an oversight of our company. So hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. We're the co-founders of BinoBooks, a startup focused on customizable children's literature. We currently have 2 books, one on COVID-19 and one on body image. And as you can probably tell, these are not your everyday kids book topics. This past December, we ran a Kickstarter campaign to help us gain press for our 2nd book and fund some of our future books. All right, so today's agenda. Our presentation this morning is going to focus mainly on crowdfunding, more specifically Kickstarter, by taking a deep dive into our own campaign. It's going to be about an hour-long presentation, and then we're going to have time for a Q&A. But as Carrie said, please drop your comments or questions in the chat, and if we don't get to them throughout, we'll get to them at the end. So meet me and Jess. So BinoBooks started through the Dun & Dishpandi Queen's Innovation Center as part of their Spread Innovation Summer Incubator. We participated in the 2020 version in Kingston. But we've been a 100% virtual company from the start. We're fully women-owned, and right now we have an 8-person team. And my name is Sydney. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer and founding member of BinoBooks. I enjoy making all of our Instagram graphics and coordinating with our social media analyst. I graduated from Queen's. I have a degree in psychology, and I have a diploma in addiction and mental health. I'm currently working in that field as a counselor, but I love working on BinoBooks as a side biz. Jess is going to introduce.
Yeah, my name's Jess. I'm the Chief Technology Officer and a co-founder at BinoBooks. My role is to work on all things tech for the company. So whether that's managing our e-commerce store or working with our software developers on our customization engine, any tech questions that the team has, they always come to me. I also graduated from Queen's with a bachelor in computing last year, and I'm currently working on my master's in education. My day job is as a software developer for the military, but my passion project is really BinoBooks and seeing that intersection between education and technology.
Thank you, Jess. So at BinoBooks, we create personalized digital storybooks on hard topics that act as conversation starters between parents and their children, while making sure that all children feel represented through character customizations. So at the start of the pandemic, we noticed a lack of child-appropriate resources to explain COVID-19 to young children. We then developed a beta product, which was one personalized e-storybook about the pandemic. And we have since expanded to other topics like body image, which was our second book, and consent, which is going to be our third book. So here's a little bit of a product demo. Parents are going to go onto our website, choose the book that they would like to purchase from our existing books. Parents would then select the book type and fill out some quick customizations, such as skin tone, hair color, style, location, and name. This personalization really allows for representation in all forms. And then our backend platform would automate the customizations of the book using image and character generation. And then after payment, the parent has two options. They can view the ebook or they can print out the storybook for the child to enjoy. So why personalized books? Personalized books have proven benefits. They increase parent-child engagement, they help children with language development, and they can even increase children's attention span as they recognize themselves in the story and they become more engaged than with a traditional storybook. And personalized books can also be a great gift. They're going to become a keepsake in your family. BinoBooks also strives to be as inclusive as possible, and custom books allow the child to fully see themselves in the story, whatever that may be, including any special touches such as a wheelchair, a really cool hairstyle, and even other family members. So this is a little intro into our second book. We started bouncing around ideas for our second book at the beginning of last summer. We'd all thought about ideas that we wished had been explained to us as young kids. We settled on body image, but in the more positive form, explaining to kids that while they can't fly, their bodies are all different and all amazing. We've been very rigorous on saving every iteration of our book, as well as documenting the customization process. This comes in really handy as we use all of these pictures and videos as proof that we're working on book development for our Kickstarter. So this is just a quick video, it doesn't have any sound. It's going over our customization process, kind of how the illustration is all done. We use multiple layers to make customization easy. There you go. So here's our growth strategy. In the coming months, we're going to incorporate all of our user feedback from our upcoming book. And we've recently opened an e-commerce store on Square, but we'll be transitioning to a Shopify platform later in the year. At the same time, we're going to continue to develop additional storybooks in our collection, as I mentioned. We've currently got a second book in development, and we've done the illustration process for that. From here, we're going to continue to develop further character customizations and features such as audiobooks, physical books, and more. When we have enough content in our library, we plan to move to a subscription plan, allowing families to access our ebooks. So now while you're all here, we're going to start talking about crowdfunding a bit. So what is crowdfunding? When you think about the phase crowdfunding, you can break it down into two separate parts. You have the crowd, or lots of people, and then funding, money going into your business. So at its simplest form, crowdfunding is a large amount of people providing small amounts of capital to a business or creator. Crowdfunding can be considered a social platform as it's mainly done online, often in a combination with other social networks, which makes it easy for supporters to share a cause or a project within their social networks. Kickstarter even has an algorithm to understand what campaigns you like, which ones are kind of connected to your own campaign, and show you more of what you enjoy and what you would want to support. With that, you can also like and comment on a Kickstarter, making it more sociable and bringing your online community to another platform. So naturally, crowdfunding expands beyond your circle of investors and your community, as well as your family and friends, because more people can take part in supporting your venture or idea. All right, so why crowdfunding? Crowdfunding is a fantastic way to build your brand. For businesses like ours, which didn't have much reach beyond our Queens community and our personal bubbles, crowdfunding was a fantastic way to communicate our vision to a larger audience. Crowdfunding is also a great way to test your product on potential customers. It's a good opportunity to see if there's market interest in your idea. For us, we even tested variations of our products and pricing strategies to see what customers preferred. And similar to the last point, crowdfunding allows you to test the public's reaction and get valuable feedback. Your funders through crowdfunding are likely early adopters, and they're the ones that are willing to let you know if they like the product, what they would change about it. And then tying all this together, if you have a successful crowdfunding campaign, this is proof of market interest that you could use later on if you were looking for investors. It's a fantastic way to communicate that there are people out there willing to spend money on your product before the product is even available. So crowdfunding may not be right for your business if you have outstanding loans. Crowdfunding shouldn't be used as a way to pay off debt. It's meant to be a way to fund an upcoming project instead. Secondly, if you are not registered with a business bank account, crowdfunding may also not be a good fit. The expectation is that you're a registered business, which is needed to get a business bank account. We're not really accountants, or we can't provide legal advice, but having the crowdfunding money go directly into a business bank account will be a lot easier for you in the long run. If you don't have any patent or copyright or intellectual property right, you don't have an original idea that is hard to, or don't have an original idea that is hard to duplicate, crowdfunding may not be a good fit. You don't want to present an idea that someone can easily make theirs because it devalues your unique selling proposition to your funders. Finally, if you don't have time or resources, crowdfunding may not be for you. A lot of effort is needed towards advertising your crowdfunding campaign and getting the word out there so that you can meet your goal. From our experience, you need to dedicate at least a couple months towards your campaign to make it as effective as possible. This work is made lighter with more hands, so if you have a big team or a social media coordinator, or even other founders you can split the work with, that's ideal. Keep in mind that less than half of all crowdfunding campaigns reach their goals, so putting in the time and effort is definitely required. It really is not easy. It's fairly common for crowdfunding campaigns to fail and to be relaunched several months after its first go around. You can kind of see the way crowdfunding works a bit. So definitely don't give up. There's been so many cases of products failing the first time around, coming back and exceeding the goal. So here's a case study of a campaign trying again and really succeeding. This picture is of the Coolest Cooler. The campaign initially launched on Kickstarter in 2013, and it failed to raise enough funds. They went back to collect themselves and relaunched in 2014. Their second campaign was one of the most funded projects in 2014. Reaching 26 times their funding goal and raising a total of 13 million for a cooler. So how did they go from a failed campaign to a record-breaking one? Coolest Cooler simply redesigned their product to make it sleeker and more visually appealing. In addition to a better appearance, the team added brand new features like a waterproof Bluetooth speaker, USB charger, LED light bulb, and the lid to use at night. And they also changed their rewards and lowered their prices to make it more attainable for a wide variety of backers to support them. Finally, this might be a small one, but they used higher quality photos that made them look like a serious company that's ready to produce a good product. So a couple different types of crowdfunding. This is a quick little video on some of the different types.
Let's talk about one of the fastest growing online industries, crowdfunding. Crowdfunding is when individuals or startups use an online platform to gain funding for a project. Globally, the crowdfunding industry raised $16.2 billion in 2015 and is projected to grow to $96 billion by 2025. Generally speaking, there are 4 kinds of crowdfunding sites, although some sites include more than one type of crowdfunding. First, debt-based sites. These are where contributors receive interest payments in exchange for their contributions. Examples include Funded Here, Crowdo, and Moolah Sense. Next, equity-based sites, where contributors receive shares in exchange for their contributions. Examples include AngelList, Funnel, Seeders, and CapBridge. Third, reward-based platforms, where contributors are promised rewards in exchange for their support, like first priority access to the product once it goes live. Examples include Kickstarter, Indiegogo, and Ulule. Finally, donation-based platforms, where donations are charitable and usually tax-deductible. Examples include Indiegogo, Patreon, YouCaring, and Friend Fund. Now, crowdfunding websites have to invest heavily in their platforms upfront and slowly build up scale. So before investing in a crowdfunding platform, it's important to consider its stage of growth. In the early stage, the main focus should be on customer traction. You can gauge this by the amount of momentum being built among project initiators and investors. Therefore, the key valuation metrics include valuation divided by number of campaigns, valuation divided by successful campaigns, and valuation by funds raised. In the growth stage, the aim is to prove the revenue model and to scale up as rapidly as possible. Therefore, the key valuation metrics include valuation divided by funding value and valuation divided by revenue. Finally, in the late stage, the goal is to maximize profitability and cash flow while maintaining growth. Therefore, the key valuation metrics include valuation divided by revenue, valuation divided by EBITDA, and the PE ratio. Those are the basics of crowdfunding.
Okay, so if you're like me and you are not super techie or business minded, I had to look up what EBITDA and the PE ratio were. So EBITDA is earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. The PE ratio is the price to earnings ratio. It's the ratio for valuing a company that measures its current share price relative to its earnings per share. Okay, so the video you just watched is going to help you kind of navigate this graph with me. So we knew the different types of crowdfunding available, and we decided that since we were an early stage startup looking to build our brand and test our idea, we decided to offer our funders a reward rather than giving away equity, building debt, or asking for donations. So this left us with a couple different sites to choose from. Self-Starter, which only provides funding specific to startups, but it can be for any cause or any business idea. Indiegogo, which is specific funding, can be for any idea, including a charity. It's becoming increasingly popular with startups, and it's actually estimated that 15 million people visit this site each month. Side note, Indiegogo launched Indiegogo Life, or if you've heard of generosity.com, they renamed themselves that. It's a service that people can use to raise money for emergencies, medical expenses, celebrations, or other life events. This was acquired by GoFundMe. So there's lots of connections between all of these startup sites. They're all battling for people to use them. So GoFundMe has to be a funding for a cause and a charity rather than a project. It really focuses on the story, not the outcome. And donations can get a tax receipt for GoFundMe. Kickstarter. So Kickstarter is specifically creative funding. It can't be for a charity. It's definitely the most popular out of these options. So in January, approximately 19 million people visited their site. So after comparing these platforms, we knew that GoFundMe was not really an option that we fit into. We also knew that Self-Starter is less heard of. So that left us with kind of the two, Indiegogo and Kickstarter. So compared with Kickstarter, which is more focused on sharing creative or serviceable products and media, Indiegogo offers backers a broader collection of products such as tech and design, health and fitness, education, transportation, a bunch of stuff. They're open to a really wide range of products and businesses. Indiegogo is also less strict than Kickstarter about the types of projects they host. You can create tangible products, but Indiegogo also accepts fundraisers that benefit nonprofits, educational campaigns, community projects. It's worth noting that Indiegogo doesn't allow personal cause campaigns. So if you don't fall under the purview of Kickstarter's creative mission, Indiegogo might be the better option for you. Ultimately, we decided to go with Kickstarter as we are a completely creative entity. And we wanted our backers to specifically be looking for creative products. We wanted them to go on, kind of have the idea that they wanted to research some creative ones, and they'd find us. We also like the rules of Kickstarter being in place, that your project has to be something that you create and you can share with the world. And as they put it, has to be finished. Since one of our main goals of crowdfunding was to show off our product, we went with Kickstarter.
So, Sydney, can I just pop in with a quick question?
Yeah.
Mitt has asked a good question. Actually, she sent it to me in a direct message, but can you have different crowdfunding projects going on at the same time? For instance, could you have a similar project or the same project going on different platforms? What's your thoughts on that?
I'm not entirely sure. I'm sure you could if they kind of followed the rules of each one. Like, let's say you are a nonprofit, you could definitely set up a cause funding on GoFundMe. So like towards your charity or whatever you're trying, the story that you have that you need money for. But let's say that nonprofit is also creating a board game or creating something to draw attention to that cause. They could definitely do the board game campaign through Kickstarter. I've seen that before.
And I know you already mentioned, Sydney, how much work it takes, and I'm sure you're going to get into
Yeah.
how you promoted the Kickstarter. So my initial thought to that also is that maybe you don't do them at the same time, because it takes way more work to do to promote the campaign than someone might think. And I think that if you're spreading yourself too thin, you might not do a great job on one of the platforms. So I know we're to hear more about how much work it is actually to get that Kickstarter up and running and out there. But that would be my initial thought, is it might make sense to do it in phases. Again, assuming that it's even a right fit. You know, if you have a business, it's not going to be a fit with GoFundMe, for instance, as you pointed out. So just a thought. Thanks.
Much as it's like personal time, it also is quite an investment. As you'll see, some of the money you earn will potentially go towards rewards that you're giving out. So if you have the funds to do that, totally. But as Carrie mentioned, yeah, you have to have lots of time to run even one campaign. So the rules of Kickstarter. Kickstarter has 4 rules. Your project's goal has to be to create something that can be shared with others. This can mean a physical thing like a piece of tech, a piece of art, but it can also be an experience like music and film, as well as community events or communal spaces. Kickstarter even hosts projects for food investment. I was really surprised because there are so many food trucks trying to get funding through Kickstarter. You need to clearly communicate and present your project to backers. If your project involves creating an object, so it's not yet finished, you have to produce a prototype to show them. As mentioned in previous slides, it was really good to save all of our work so we could upload these and show proof of our business growing. So 3, projects can't raise funds for charity, though nonprofits are allowed to launch projects. And you can't offer equity, revenue sharing, or investments through the app as incentives for people to donate to your project. It has to be simply them donating cash or virtual money, and no share in the business given. They also, just a side note, they have a prohibited items list, which is something to look through before you're putting in a bunch of time into your campaign and then finding out you can't actually launch. So now we're going to play a little game. You can either unmute or type in the chat. We're going to play a game called Is It Kickstarter? So I'm going to show you a product. And then you have to guess if it's been funded through a Kickstarter campaign or if it's just a normal product on the shelves, that sort of thing. Okay. Let me see. So our first one is the Roomba, the robot vacuum cleaner. Any guesses? I'm going to open up the chat.
Tegan thinks yes. If anybody wants to put their guess, Christine thinks yes. Ursa says yes. I think it's we're thinking yes.
Oh, it's not a Kickstarter.
Oh, great idea though.
Seems like it definitely could be. Okay, so next one is Exploding Kittens. It's a popular card game. We have a yes.
Says yes again. I seem to remember someone saying this was a Kickstarter. I seem to remember something about this. Irsa says yes. Mint says no. Christine says yes. What do you think?
Kickstarter.
Yeah, that one is, I thought.
Nearly $9 million Kickstarter. The fidget cube, super popular after the fidget spinner.
So Christine says yes. Tegan says no.
Oh, yes.
What about this? I'm not sure, but that's Christine. Yeah, Christine says yes. It seems like a little product that would be easy to fund on Kickstarter to me, but Mitt says yes.
Kickstarter.
Hmm.
So another high earning one for sure. The gravity weighted blanket. So the original weighted blanket, super popular now.
I got some no's. Christina and Irsa saying no. I would lean that way myself as well. It seems to be a lot of technology. Mitt says that yes. Tegan says no. Oh, Tegan says yes, I mean. Bit of a split vote here.
Yes, so this is kind of a weird one. I was also surprised, 23,000 backers does not seem like a lot for nearly a $5 million project. So that's almost $200 per backing.
Wow.
Or maybe a couple huge backings. But all right, popular one, the Scrub Daddy sponge, if you've heard of them.
Irsa says no. What is it? I've seen this before.
Sponge.
I know it's a very popular, it's made millions.
It's
I'm
a
not
hard
sure.
sponge. When you soak it, it gets really soft. And then the Smile, you can like put a spoon through, it cleans your
I
spoon.
seem to remember it was on Dragon's Den or something, so that's why I'm going to say no. Yeah, it's for dishes, Christine.
I'm not sure, like, so I see Rita saying, can you explain the yes or no reason? I'm not sure, like, why things were chosen to go through Kickstarter. I just know that they got super popular because of Kickstarter. If that answers the question. So no, that's not a Kickstarter. You guys got it. It was popularized on Shark Tank. So this is our last one coming up, the tile tracker. So you clip it onto your keys or your dog's collar, and it tells you where that item is. This is a tricky
Yeah,
one.
we've got some yeses. I'm thinking yes too, like it's a little product again. Although that blanket threw me, I was like, ooh, that seems like a more interesting. I'm going to say yes too. We've got mostly yeses here.
Okay. Not a Kickstarter. This was on another platform, Self-Starter. So did crowdfund.
Trick question.
For sure, trick question. Okay, so I'm going to hand it over to Jess.
Perfect. So now we're going to get a little bit into more of the case study of our Kickstarter experience. So Sydney touched on it a little bit before, but since our product was a creative offering, Kickstarter was the crowdfunding option that suited us best. Kickstarter has its own community of early adopters who would validate our idea. And we also knew that it was well known and our network would recognize it without explanation. As a business built on principles of design thinking and human-centric design, it was important for us to validate assumptions that we'd made about our solution. We knew that if there were people willing to put money behind our idea, that would confirm that there was a need for our product. So lots of things needed to make a campaign. This is probably not an exhaustive list, but these are definitely the most important things to consider. So I'll go through each one with a little bit of an explanation. So the first one is having an audience and a social media presence prior to having your campaign is really important. For us, this meant from the beginning of the inception of our idea, while we didn't have a product created, a campaign is basically what you're posting on Kickstarter. That's okay, Teague. No worries. Yeah. So basically for us, we built a social media presence prior to our Kickstarter to gain a following. So that when we were launching our product, we'd have people that were already kind of aware about the idea, and it would help uplift our goal of reaching our Kickstarter goal. So we highly recommend building an audience, really connecting with people, even through things like this, through WeCan, and networking to make sure that people really know about your idea before you're posting it on Kickstarter. Having that local network will really help you when you're posting it more publicly. The next thing is to think of a more realistic funding goal and timeline. So Kickstarter is aimed at creating, I guess you're creating a product and trying to bring it to life. So you have to consider how much funding you'll need to bring that idea to life. At the same time, when you're creating those rewards, you also want to take into consideration how much money you'd be spending on fulfilling those orders, whether that's going to be coming out of your Kickstarter funding or out of your own pocket. At the same time, you also want to consider a timeline. How long do you want that Kickstarter to be? How much time do you want to spend pre-Kickstarter and post-Kickstarter to get those rewards out? The next thing that was really important for us was to build a captivating story. The whole way of communicating to backers and getting them to put money into your project is to really capture them and make them interested in what you have to offer. For this, you can consider having a shorter story or a longer story. For us, through our research, longer stories did do better because you're based on SEO, the more words that you're having in your story is going to likely get more hits. Sometimes you got to consider not going too long that people don't want to read it, but we'll get into a little bit later another way of capturing people's attention without having to read the full story. Sydney really emphasized before that time is super, super important. We honestly, in reflection, don't think we put enough time into it, but making sure that you really have the resources to go through with the project and actually have a chance at reaching your goal is really important. You need to plan your reward tiers and your items. So on Kickstarter, you can list as many items as you want and then bundle them into different tiers so that when people donate a certain amount of money, they'll receive a certain tier. So your lower tiers would obviously have lower value rewards, your higher tiers would have higher value rewards, and how you split those items amongst the tiers is really up to you. You need a business bank account as well as a funding breakdown, so where the money will be going towards. For us, that meant we split up the money towards our illustration costs as well as some of our technology costs, and we provided a breakdown of that on our Kickstarter page. Something that we didn't do pre-campaign that we wish we did was develop a press request package. A great way to get the word out there is reaching out to press outlets, media outlets. And for us, we did reach out to media outlets without a press request package, and we found we spent a lot of time writing answers to interview questions and explaining our product when in reality, a lot of the questions were the same. So mid-campaign, we did develop a press request package, but that's something we would have definitely done pre-campaign. And finally, complete honesty with your backers. As Sydney mentioned before, you do need to provide a prototype or some visual that shows what the product's going to look like in the end. At the same time, you want to be communicating with the backers very clearly about your timelines and how your progress is going.
Jess, did you want to address that question?
Let me see. How do donors come to these platforms? So again, so charitable efforts would be more towards causes, things that more nonprofits and charities would run. This is more to fund a creative idea. So a lot of early adopters, there's people that are interested in innovative new ideas, and they really follow Kickstarter closely. Which means they're looking for the next big thing so that they can say, hey, I put my money into that idea and look where it is now. At the same time, it's also a really great way for you to get your family and friends. If they've always said, hey, I'd like to support your business early on, this is a great way without having all of the nitty-gritty details and a little bit of uncomfortableness when they say, I want equity at the same time. All right, so I just wanted to talk a little bit about consideration when deciding your rewards and your backing tiers. And just for terminology, the post that you make onto Kickstarter is called your campaign, and the people that support your campaign are called backers. So we'll be referring to backers and backing throughout the presentation. That's what that means. So for your rewards, things that you want to consider is first the cost to produce your items. If you're going to be using money from your actual funding, make sure to account for that when you're setting your Kickstarter goal. Your shipping and delivery costs. So for us, we use a combination of digital items and low weight items that would fit in letter mail as our rewards. The only product that was a higher shipping cost for us was a physical book that we sent out, which we shipped directly from our manufacturer to avoid doubling down on shipping fees. This is really up to you. When a person backs a Kickstarter, they pay a shipping cost on top of that if there is one that's relevant. So for us, we really wanted to minimize those costs because people were already putting their money towards the Kickstarter. And the last thing is to add a personal touch. So we really added rewards that were personal to our business while adding value to customers. And we'll dive into that a little bit later on what that looked like for us. All right, so length of time for Kickstarter. So Kickstarter allows you to run campaigns from 1 to 60 days, but they highly recommend sticking around that 30-day mark, 1 month. And that's what we went with too. And we found that was the perfect balance of getting a lot of attention at the start of our campaign and at the end of our campaign with a little bit of a dip in the middle. 60-day campaigns honestly seem a little bit dragged out. And I think anything shorter than 30 days without a lot of attention prior is probably not going to be your best bet. And Kickstarter has research that shows that the longer lasting campaigns are less successful. So hitting that 30-day mark is really important. So Kickstarter follows an all or nothing format. And this is really to create a sense of urgency. It's a measure ultimately to protect creators and minimize the risk for everyone. So this means that if you do not reach your Kickstarter goal by the end of the campaign, you do not get any of the money. The backers are only charged to their credit cards after the funding date has closed and you've reached at least 100% of your goal. We've seen that having a goal to rally around creates that sense of urgency, and it gets early backers personally interested to the point that they're bringing on more supporters and making every backer a part of the community crossing the finish line together. Setting a goal and not charging backers unless the project reaches the goal also makes the process democratic. Backers have to come together to raise the amount that the creator really needs. So for us, we decided that our Kickstarter goal would be 5,000, which we exceeded. So our campaign was successful. And we really chose this amount not only based on the amount that we needed to fund our upcoming book, but also to factor in the cost of our rewards. We needed $3,500 to produce our next book, and we budgeted about $1,500 to fulfill all the rewards promised to our backer. Ultimately, in the end, we didn't even need that $1,500, but it was nice to just budget that a little bit extra in case. Overall, you really want to put your goal high enough that you can complete your rewards and fulfill your purpose that's outlined in your Kickstarter. If you're setting it too low, while you may reach that goal, you may not be able to deliver the vision that you've communicated through the Kickstarter. So this is a bit of a timeline on key things that we thought were really important at the different stages of the campaign. So pre-launch, it's important to ultimately have an idea of what you want to communicate through your Kickstarter, and then start budgeting for the rewards. If you're going to be fulfilling those rewards through outside vendors aside from your company, it's good to get in contact with them or research how much those rewards are going to cost so that you can build that into your budget. Then what I touched on before about building an audience prior to Kickstarter, this is the time that you would start reaching out to your close network and communicating to them that you're about to go on Kickstarter and that you'd really either appreciate their support or appreciate them spreading it with their network as well. Something really cool about Kickstarter is that once you finalize your story and your page and Kickstarter approves it, before the campaign launches, if you have time before that, they'll create a dummy page for you, basically just explaining a Kickstarter is going to be launching on this date, and people can sign up their email there. That way, when the Kickstarter actually launches, they're going to get an email almost immediately. And for us, that was really useful in getting our first few backers. And then using that audience, again, you want to publicize a countdown to your campaign, really build a hype around it and get people excited for what's to come. This is a great way to rely on your close network to really uplift you through that time. During the actual campaign, that's your time to continue extending your network and emailing everybody that you can think of. If you have time prior to the campaign, that's a great time to budget in some time to build an email list of all the people that you'd like to reach out to. We found it really helpful to write personal emails to all of the people that we reached out to, whether it was from our personal contacts or professional contacts. At the same time, that's when you would also send out your press package. So For us, we think we left that a little bit too late. We got some pretty big media outlets reaching out to us really close to the end of the campaign. And it's something we wish we did much earlier on to really get that traction and get our word out there. And finally, consistent posting to social media is really important throughout your campaign. I encourage you to also explore social media outlets that you may not usually use. So for us, we commonly use Instagram as our main social media, just because that makes sense for our audience. But we did a lot of work on LinkedIn during that time, as well as Facebook and a little bit of TikTok as well, because you never know where you're really going to find someone ultimately. Post-campaign, this is the time, if you're successful in your campaign, that you want to focus on fulfilling your orders, or also completing the project that you intended to do if the money's needed for that, and then getting your rewards out to customers. During the campaign, you're able to communicate expected timelines for rewards to get out to customers. So emailing out time estimates through a newsletter is really useful in this case. For us, that we budgeted that our campaign was in December, and we budgeted that rewards would go out between February and April. But all of our rewards went out by the end of February. So we communicated that through our emails. And it's self-explanatory. Sending out your rewards based on the timeline is really important. And for us, sharing our experience to encourage more people like us to consider Kickstarter as an option, like presentations like today, was really important. So something I touched on before was that for us to have a captivating story was really important to basically sell our idea. Another way of communicating instead of the written format is to use a video. Kickstarter allows you to have a video at the top of the platform, which is pretty much the first thing that people can see. And they encourage that to be a way to communicate all of your key points. So Sydney and I's co-founder, Danielle, is really awesome at making videos. So we wanted to show you the video that she made for our Kickstarter. The audio's not playing, Sid. Sid, you have to unmute yourself.
Sorry.
It's okay.
A lot of questions. Our trees ask a lot of questions. Are trees alive? Where does the water go when I flush? What does the tooth fairy do with all the teeth? How did you get a baby in your belly? Which can leave you looking a bit like this. But what happens when they start asking questions like this?
Mom, my friends won't play with me because they said I'm fat. Should I be smaller?
This hits really hard because it's the first time your child is being judged solely on how they look and not on the person who they are inside. Unfortunately, this is not the last hard-hitting question.
Why is Martin wearing pink? Pink what is a gay Why does Beth have two moms? Why are some police Which one is your real Where do people go Will when you they die? Are they a boy or a girl?
Leaving you feeling overwhelmed. How am I going to answer all of these questions? I don't even know the answer to most of them myself. Imagine having a digital storybook so that whenever your child asks a difficult question like this, you have a story that you can read together and some few discussion questions to go through on the topic. Instead of shying away from these challenging discussions, you'll ease into it and relieve stress for both you and your child. Hi, my name is Danielle. This is Jess, and this is Sydney. And together we're bringing you BinoBooks. Growing up, we had all the storybooks, from Dr. Seuss's Green Eggs and Ham to The Hungry Caterpillar. And these books are known for being fun and whimsical and just classic storybooks. But they shy away from the hard topics that come up in a child's life. When we were growing up, we didn't see our body image and race represented in our storybooks. And this is the same today for the children that surround us. And a lack of representation should not be an issue in today's day and age. This is why we need you to help us reinvent reading together. Our vision is to ensure that every child feels represented in their BinoBook. And we recognize that as an early stage startup, we don't have enough resources to do this at this time. So with the limited resources we have available, we currently have this many customizations for the main character. We have 8 different skin tones, 8 hairstyles, 4 hair colors, 3 eye colors, and 2 pairs of glasses. With additional funding from our backers, we will expand our book library on top of our character customizations. So if you don't see a child being represented in their readings, let us know at hellobinobooks@gmail.com how we can help to make them feel represented in their readings. Back us and you'll have access to 11 tiers plus 1 early bird tier of rewards. Not only will we be offering our signature customizable storybook, but we'll also have limited hard copy editions, adorable stickers of the animals from our book, and even exclusive opportunity to help build the next Bino book.
We'd like you to be a part of building your book. Together, we can reinvent reading. Perfect. So we'll go to the next slide. So as the video mentioned, we had 11 tiers plus 1 early bird tier, and this is what some of our tiers look like. As you can see, as it goes towards the right, the pledging amount gets higher, which means the rewards also increase in value. You can set how many people can get a certain reward, or you can leave it unlimited. So for us, because a lot of our items were physical items, we limited the amount that people could get, also to communicate exclusivity. Our higher tier, the octopus tier, actually was, we'd set it to only 7 people, which we sold out of really fast, which kind of communicated to us that that tier had our hardcover book. It communicated that people were interested in that. So we managed to do a restock mid-campaign and sold out of that as well. You can see that the different rewards are listed, as well as a description, the estimated delivery date, which we recommend adding more time that you need so that you can make people happy when you deliver earlier. And one other thing on that, sorry, Sid. So our tiers range from $5 to $2,000. Most of our backers were in the $60 to $120 range, but we included lower and higher tiers to cover a broader range of potential backers. The higher tiers, I don't think we got support on those, but we mostly did it as a hopeful, maybe someone might be interested, and just had that as an option. So next I'll go into some of the rewards. We had quite a few rewards, but I'll highlight some of the differences in them. So as the video mentioned, we had our digital storybooks, which is the main item for our business. So that was a part of most of our rewards. We had limited edition physical books, which was that octopus tier. That was really a way for us to test the market as to whether people would be willing to spend more money on a physical version of the book, which the fact that we sold out of that tier proved to us that that's true. We made thank you videos for quite a few of the tiers, personalized thank you videos. That was a great free thing that we could do that was also still a personal touch, and that we could individualize to each backer. So if we had a personal connection to them, the message was obviously a little bit more personal. We made stickers using the animals in our book. That was a really cheap item that was also light to ship. So that was a part of a lot of our tiers. In some of the higher tiers, we included the art prints that are in the top right corner. So that was from a local artist that we'd connected to during our search for our illustrator. That was a way for us to ultimately uplift a small business while providing an item that relates to our books with the positive body image. And then we also had higher tiers, those $2,000 tiers, $1,000, $750. And those were things like choosing the next book topic, choosing a character to be in a future book. One person backed us for a design thinking consultation session. So we just thought about different things of value that people might potentially be interested in. So I'll go over a few of the things that we would have changed. So after completing our Kickstarter, our team debriefed its successes and its failures. First off, although we had an email list built prior, we would have chosen to start sending emails pre-launch to alert our followers and build anticipation surrounding our campaign. This sounds like it may have been a long time in advance, but we probably would recommend starting organizing the Kickstarter about 3 months minimum in advance to actually launching, which would really give you the time to build up your network and have people subscribe or opt in to receiving emails from you. Alongside this, we would have built out our list of potential people to reach out to as we scrambled towards the end of the campaign, trying to find people to reach out to while not seeming desperate or wanting to spam people in their inboxes. The next thing that we would have changed is thinking out the early bird tiers a bit more. So Kickstarter gives you the option of either having the tiers open for the entirety of the campaign or for certain time periods. And a common thing that people do is having typically higher tiers available for less money for a short amount of time at the start of the campaign to build exclusivity. That's something we didn't think through. So we didn't really think through the rewards, and that's something that we wish we would have, I guess, capitalized on, but that's ultimately a great way to convey exclusivity and get people excited and to get those early set of backers. We would have done less reward tiers and done more add-ons. So while you can set your rewards, you can also set add-ons as well, where if people donate a certain extra amount of money, they can choose certain add-ons to their reward list. We found that having the 11 tiers was a lot, and it took up a lot of space on our campaign page, and it just was a big scroll. So that's something we would have probably limited to about 5 or 6 tiers and had more add-ons available. Lastly, what we would have done is do more press outreach, as I mentioned before. So whether that's newspapers, online sites, blogs, radio stations, we really wrote to a lot of local outlets at first and got great traction there, but we didn't realize that some of the bigger outlets that we reached out to on a whim later on in the campaign were also interested in featuring our story. As a bonus, we also wish we would have assessed if our target market knew what Kickstarter was. We knew that our inner business circle did know what Kickstarter was, but as soon as we were sending out emails to personal connections saying, check out our Kickstarter, they didn't really know what crowdfunding or Kickstarter was. So that's something we would have communicated on: how to make an account on Kickstarter, how to back a campaign, and what Kickstarter ultimately is. Things that we would have done the same. We spent a lot of time prior to our launch researching successful Kickstarters, and we definitely recommend this, whether this is looking at YouTube videos, TikToks, or attending presentations like this one, even just scrolling on the website and seeing what campaigns have been backed and picking up on tips that they really found useful. The next thing we do is look for Kickstarters that are in your niche. A great thing about Kickstarter is that when you search on their website, it's really easy to filter between different industries. So if there's a certain industry that you're looking to create an idea in, we'd highly recommend looking at what they're doing and comparing successful and not successful Kickstarters in your niche and seeing what the differences are and the type of rewards that they're offering. And the last thing that we'd highly recommend doing is backing another Kickstarter. We backed a Kickstarter prior to our launch that we knew was going to be successful. And so when they were posting updates about their fulfillment of orders, we've been receiving those throughout our campaign and even now and seeing their progress. So as a book company, we backed a book, and that made the most sense for us. Something that we should have also done is probably back a Kickstarter that wasn't going to be so successful.
Jess, Rita has a question. Do you have a moment?
For sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Go ahead, Rita.
Hi, there. Hi. I just couldn't type this fast enough. I'm just wondering, because I do have a business that is 100% online as well. I think these are what you caught me in your first statements. In going forward, and well, even going through the Kickstarter campaigns that you've been doing, how, if anything, did you become public? And you too, especially are the founders, do you appear on your websites? How present are you in the mix of a children's story? We do want that people to come down to reality and see they're real people here, not just baby animals. How you handle that?
Absolutely. So a big part of our Kickstarter was sharing the team behind the idea. So we were very transparent on how our co-founder Danielle wrote the first storybook and all of our different roles in creating BinoBooks. So we gave bios and photos of each of us and what our involvement was in BinoBooks, as well as our background. That's something that we do on our website too, is have a page that shows who we are, what our roles are. We've posted videos of different things we've been involved in, like our pitch competitions and any press. So that really helps to put a face behind, just as you said, the animals in the book.
Well, so this was in the actual proposals you've sent out, your press package, or versus the crowdfunding image as it appears on Kickstarter?
Yeah, we've done it in both. So we'll share a link actually to our Kickstarter page after this so that you can take a look as well. But in our press packages too, we found it was really important to explain the team behind the idea, because people don't want to just back a product. They want to know the people that are going to bring it forward. Does that answer your question?
Yes, that's great.
Okay,
thank you.
perfect. Yeah, no problem. And so we'll go to the next slide, Sid. So things that our campaign we found were unique was that video that we showed you before that Danielle made. Some people put a lot of time into their videos. Some people have been, like, you can tell they're really professionally made, but ultimately for us, it was important to put as Rita was mentioning, I guess, a face to the people behind the business. So featuring us in that video and showing that there are people really passionate about the idea behind the business, and making it really authentic and communicating all the key points of our story. The thank you videos that we offered as a reward tier was also something that we found was unique to our campaign. It was a great personal touch, and it was also nice for us that we didn't have to put money towards it, just a bit of our time. And we got feedback from a lot of backers that they found it was really personal and a nice touch to really see the people behind it and how much they appreciated the money they donated. And our last thing was our collaboration with other small businesses and creating our rewards. So that was the art prints as well as our thank you cards that went out to people. We use small businesses, and that was a really nice nod to us for the people that have been supporting us and uplifting them at the same time. And that is everything. That's our formal presentation. You can find us on social media at Hello BinoBooks. Our email is also there, as well as our website. We really appreciate your time, and we now have about half an hour for Q&A if anyone has any questions.
Wow, what a fantastic overview. And just let me ask a quick question. Is that Kickstarter still alive? So if people still, are they still contributing now?
So the Kickstarter closed after 30 days. So it closed on January 4th. So nobody's backing it now, but the page is still live so that we can post updates. And I'm going to post it in the chat right now so people can take a look as well.
Awesome. So I have a question, because we've done a few crowdfunding discussions before with the WeCan community. And I know something that comes up a lot is this product versus service idea, because a lot of businesses that we support here in WeCan, they're service-based businesses. So, you know, I'll give you an example, like even, goodness, I know that you're an online company. Rita talked about being online as well, but you know, there's kind of a difference there. And so is this at all a good fit for a service industry type business, or really does it have to be like a hard product or a digital product? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's definitely easier if you're a product-based business, but ultimately, if you're a service-based business that's still in the creative space, for example, maybe you're like a theater group or creating a film, something of that sort, it could definitely still work. You just want to think about that you still can create rewards that are more product-based for people to take, because you wouldn't really be able to give services as your product, because people could be backing you from all across the world. Does that kind of answer the question? Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember you and I jotted down when you said an experience, an event.
Yeah.
So I guess really it's a question too. If you're a service-based business, could you create an experience or an event as a reward? Because usually we can. So, okay, that's great, because I do get that question a lot. All right. Any questions in the group? I know that some folks had to jump off the call, but Christina's saying, if we want to do a crowdfunding project, can you help us?
Absolutely.
I think that, I mean, certainly this has been a huge help. I think this is, that great starting point. I think what you talked about, doing the research, looking at those examples, sometimes the only way that you do learn is by doing it. And that was one of my questions. Had any of you on your team had experience with Kickstarter, either as donors or having run Kickstarter in any way, or was this the first time you'd experienced it?
This was the first time. None of us have definitely ran a campaign before. This was the first time. I've backed a Kickstarter before. I had a good friend that I met through Queens who is a very much an early adopter and puts regularly money into $10-15 into random Kickstarters that maybe will work, maybe won't work. So once I did back a Kickstarter and it wasn't successful, so I didn't get anything out of it. Sydney, I don't know about you. Have you? What's your experience?
I didn't have much experience with Kickstarter, but I've definitely been one to peruse GoFundMe.
Yeah.
So I kind of knew that one. I see people post a lot of GoFundMes.
Yeah.
And Tegan has a question, but actually I'll hold my question. Tegan, you go ahead and ask yours, and then I'm going to come back because that leads me to another thought, but go ahead, Tegan.
Okay, great. I kind of have two questions. So my first question was just, I assume that Kickstarter takes a percentage and so I was kind of wondering what that percentage was. And then my second question was why you decided to change from a Square website to a Shopify.
Sure. Yeah, you're right. That's something we totally forgot to touch on in the presentation. So Kickstarter does take 5% of your fee plus any credit card processing fees. And that's pretty standard amongst all of the crowdfunding websites. The reason we're switching from Square to Shopify, so Square was a free e-commerce website, so that was really good for us starting, but the part of the customization of our books means that we need very specific code integrated into our website so that we can show live previews to people when they're trying to customize the characters in our books. And Shopify was really the only platform that we'd be able to embed code that made sense, but ultimately for us, I wish we could have stayed with Square because the fees are a bit lower, but Shopify also, if you're trying to have a bit more of a complex web platform, it makes the most sense.
Awesome, thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
Good questions. Anyone else on the floor that has a question? Either you can put it into the Zoom chat, if you'd like to unmute yourself, you can.
I have a question for you girls. Have you ever considered going into custom cards?
Like cards, like birthday cards and that sort of thing?
Yeah, like personalized cards. The only reason why I asked that because my daughter was looking for them yesterday and couldn't find them anywhere.
No, I don't think we have, but that's really interesting. We're always looking to branch out and that sort of thing. And this is actually funny you mentioned it. Jess and her sisters run an Etsy store and they hand quill cards, and that was one of our rewards. It's just a homemade sort of thing, but Jess, maybe we'll collaborate.
Yeah, maybe we got to expand it. That's a really great idea. Yeah.
Diane, I'm with you. I know so many women from underrepresented groups, and when I go to buy an anniversary card, a birthday card, especially for the children in my world, I like to give them a card where they show up, right, on the front. And so I find them in I have one store I go to. It's the only store I know that I've ever found them. And I grab them in bulk when I see these cards. And so I 1,000% agree with Diane that this actually might be a very nice spin.
That's a really cool idea. Yeah, we're going to talk about that more.
Especially the children part of it.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Because often women might, I underline, be represented. Yeah. But then there's so many of these events in children's lives that that might be a really cool idea, Diane.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's really awesome.
I wanted to follow up with a question that something you mentioned earlier about, it occurred to me as you're talking about online, contributors. And of course, Jess and Sydney, you are both not necessarily of my age demographic. Okay. So you've grown up with online donations and online support. So there is certainly a demographic, I would say, that isn't as comfortable, supporting this type of thing. So do you know, or was there any, I guess you didn't ask questions about, what demographic people belong to that supported your campaign, but what could we expect, I guess, if you put a Kickstarter out there, what tend to be, those demographics or even psychographics of folks who support crowdfunding in general?
I can speak to that. Oh, go for it, Sid.
Oh, I was just going to say, based on our Instagram and the people that interact with us, we get a lot of mommy bloggers. So we knew that a lot of our online presence is other people who have online presences. So we weren't too worried about our close network not understanding Kickstarter. We also got a lot of funders that also have small businesses. But there was definitely some hesitation within my own like family and personal network when I was sharing it. Like people didn't know what it was. I had to remind them, like, and Jess said, like, help them create an account, that sort of thing. And that can be kind of awkward at times because they know that you're asking for money. Jess, you can go ahead.
Yeah, I had one experience with my dad's neighbor, an older man, and he works for the military as well, and he was like, I'm not putting my information online. And so I think in the end he like gave my dad cash to back on his behalf, and that worked out. And that was the only like real instance of someone who was like, I really want to donate to your campaign, but I don't want to log in. Kickstarter is pretty easy you can either make an account directly on Kickstarter, or you can log in through Facebook or through Apple. So if you have one of Facebook or Apple, it's a pretty easy login process. But we found that the majority of our backers were either people that we already personally had connections to, or tech savvy people that were comfortable with the idea of, I guess, people that are also comfortable with the idea of startups and things that might not always work out exactly as planned.
Yeah, and I guess that's important to consider, especially what your product or service is. So if you're really aiming at, let's say, an older demographic, right, that is not comfortable with this form of, online purchases, et cetera, and that really is your focus, that this might not be the right option for you. I think it's really important to think about the demographics and the thought processes and trust around online information sharing, for instance, like you just hit on. Yeah. Interesting. Go ahead, Mitt.
Yes, I wanted to ask you a question that if I am planning to have a Kickstarter or like crowdfunding for food products for kids, which can be the best platform out of this many, like Kickstarter and all of them?
Maybe I'll go back to that slide with the axis. So campaign for food and for kids. So it'd probably be like their parents would be the demographic interested in buying it, or grandparents, family, friends. So I would probably, and you're a small business still, you're in that like early stage growth.
Yeah, that's a starter.
Yeah, so you could go, self-starter, we'll start there. That's for just small businesses. So the people that would be following those would either be other small businesses, maybe have some angel investors, people looking for the next small business that will potentially grow. So that could be a good one. Indiegogo is kind of the wild card. You can kind of crowdfund anything on there. And it's super popular right now. So you could also use that platform. Kickstarter, again, it has to have that creative piece. So if there's Kickstarter definitely has lots of food, so I think that would fall under creative. So you could also use that platform. But again, I would definitely like research on each of these platforms, similar ideas to yours, and see if if you don't see any on Kickstarter, maybe read all of their rules, and they have a creator handbook that you can go through and make sure it falls under the categories for that. GoFundMe, I don't think would be the best option. So GoFundMe, you can kind of think of the backings more as donations. So if there's some sort of story behind it and it's going towards a personal cause, then you can use GoFundMe. I don't know enough about your product, but I would probably stick with the Kickstarter, Indiegogo, self-starter ones.
And I like what you suggested earlier about researching, to go in and see what other food campaigns are out there. You can search by niche, right? And and find out in your category, maybe there's even food for kids, and just see what other people are doing. Sorry, Mitt, did I cut you off?
No, that's okay. I was just saying thank you for the answer. And also, like that, to extend that question, I wanted to ask that if I already have a Facebook account and all other social media, I can actually put the link for my this crowdfunding project on that platform, on the social media.
Yeah, so through Facebook, you can definitely share it. It'll kind of like embed in the Facebook post. Instagram is not super friendly with link sharing. What we did on Instagram was we put the link in our bio, and then when we were mentioning our campaign, we would just say, check the link in bio. You can also do an Instagram story, which has the link embedded, and the person can click on it. It takes them right to your campaign page. We personally used a lot of LinkedIn throughout our campaign. We knew that we would probably be getting a lot of traction with other small businesses and people looking to back businesses, and LinkedIn, our following is a lot of other small businesses.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
No problem.
Great question. Jess, maybe do you want to address the question from Marita in the chat?
Yeah, so the question was, do you know what is sent to backers if a campaign doesn't reach its goal? I believe I'm not 100% sure. I believe they get an email saying that it doesn't get through and their card won't be charged. But even if they don't get that email, no charges incurred to the backer, and then they won't be getting any rewards at the same time.
They don't even have to pay any fees or anything. Like, there is absolutely no penalty to the contributor at all. I know, because I've been a part of some that didn't go off the grant, and I got my full money back.
Yeah.
If I could jump in there, I know that if your campaign does go through, the people running the campaign get access to your email, your mailing address, if it's rewards being mailed out. I think if your campaign doesn't reach the goal, the company does not get to see that info.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So you don't have to worry about
the only thing they get. I don't think they even give you the email. It's just pretty much the name.
Yeah, you have to be successful, and it's great incentive to succeed, obviously.
Mhm.
And that's why when you set your goal, I liked how you outlined how you set it. It wasn't just pie in the sky, like, oh, we want $50,000. It was like, here's what we need. You worked in the rewards, which was so brilliant, and it was a reasonable goal, and yet something that could actually help you accomplish something and have an impact. So I think that choice of goal is so important. Did you want to speak to that at all otherwise, or?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think a lot of people who get interested in Kickstarter either aim for a goal that's way too high and, they don't reach the goal and then they're losing. Maybe they've got a significant amount of backers, but if they're not reaching that goal, then they're not getting any of the funding. So being really transparent with the exact amount of money that you need and then giving a little bit of a buffer if needed is important. You don't want to lowball, because a lot of these Kickstarter projects are things that haven't been created. So for example, our next book, while we've written the book, it's not been illustrated, so no costs have been incurred yet. So if we hadn't met that Kickstarter goal, then we wouldn't have been able to illustrate our book. I mean, we would have found money otherwise, but if you're setting your goal too low and you can't deliver on the product in the end, that's a big red flag in the Kickstarter world. And that's something they really emphasize, which is why they ask you for those prototypes and proof of what the product or the offering is going to look like, so that later on, when you do get that money, you can actually reach that goal.
Yeah, and I'll just add in a quick personal experience as well. I'm dropping a link to the Zoom chat. I know this isn't probably applicable to anyone here, but Kid Everest is actually a crowdfunding campaign for young entrepreneurs under 18, I believe it is. And my son had a business at the beginning of COVID, and he ran it through COVID. Anyways, he set a goal of $500. That was and that was big for his business, over 30 days. He ended up raising it in 2 weeks, and I remember having that conversation, but what is a reasonable goal? Because Kid Everest is the same as Kickstarter in that I believe you don't get the funds if you don't raise all of them. But that's a really cool thing. If anybody of any young entrepreneurs under the age of 18, so you as the entrepreneur have to be 18 or under unfortunately not your product for them, but if you have a team member who would fit that category, but I love this idea though, because it teaches kids about how to use crowdfunding for their business as well.
Yeah,
There's a lot of great options. All right, any final questions as we're wrapping up today? This discussion has been so helpful. Last call for questions. I think you've certainly covered a lot of them. I want to make sure that people have a chance to type out the full question. Go ahead, Rita. Are you waving? Are you, yeah, okay.
Yeah, on a last question idea,
Sure.
that if people have gone so far as to donate and the campaign doesn't reach its goal, so do you actually lose the chance to connect with those people anymore?
Yes. So the way
You don't get any actual database of who tried to donate, nothing.
I think the way it works, so if you're posting your campaign ahead of time and it's on the Kickstarter website and it's kind of in that countdown phase, and people sign up with their emails and say, I'm hellobinobooks@gmail.com, please let me know when this campaign starts, you would get access to that email. I think if someone donates and then the campaign doesn't go through, you wouldn't get to see any of their personal information just for confidentiality reasons. Because most of the time they're putting in their mailing address, they're putting in like personal information about themselves. I don't think you'd get access to that if you're not, using it for an actual purpose, like to send rewards.
And something I'd recommend throughout your campaign is if you do have a mailing list, or maybe a part on your website where people can sign up for a mailing list, really pushing that throughout your campaign, so that people can sign up for that. So in the event you don't reach your goal, at least you still have those emails stored somewhere else.
Very good point. And obviously, as people donate, I remember this again with my son's campaign, you get a notification that so-and-so donated, but it doesn't provide their background, confidential information. But if you knew that person, you would have that information. So you would know, oh, Julie, that's helpful to know that Julie, and I might actually keep track of that just in case you don't meet, so that you could perhaps, retarget in the future if you happen to know those people or they're part of your network. So yeah. Great question, Rita.
Sorry, I don't know if it's overtime, but I just wanted to add that it really is something that I'm trying to, kind of tie up the loose back ends on my website. That one of the things that came up was, if somebody says, I would like more information about this, that they immediately get back something that says, hi, we're so glad to hear from you, and we're going to get back to you with the real information, but we wanted to let you know that we got it. And that sort of loop is what I'm thinking about with Kickstarter, because for me, it's like unbelievable that people would have extra money to just, help other people build their business. I mean, I never ever asked anybody to do that. But so, it's a new idea for me, but in general, it's a missed opportunity if you don't have that loop back to somebody who actually considered it, when you were in a real startup phase. That anyways, it just sometimes platforms might provide an opportunity for you to choose that letter, which letter style do you want to go out if your campaign doesn't work, that kind of thing.
I think during the campaign, so we did a 30-day campaign, between day 1 and day 30, you can definitely send a message to your backers and say, this is what's going on, right, Jess?
Yeah, so you can send updates throughout your campaign and post-campaign. So I think they really put that in so you can provide updates on the progress of your idea if you are funded. For us, though, we sent updates throughout our campaign, like, oh, we hit this milestone of reaching $1,000, or, oh, look, we've got this many backers, or we reached our goal. And that was a great way we would explain where we were at. We'd explain any progress we'd made mid-campaign, any news outlets that we'd been on, just more of a kind of like a newsletter update, but goes specifically to your backers. And then I think at that point would be also a great way to plug your mailing list and really get people to reach out to you at the same time.
Really
Have you
smart.
used a publicist ever, or are you doing this all in?
We did it all on our own. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Great questions. And I mean, there's just so much, we're scratching the surface today, but with a case study, I think it does show all of us what is possible. And it really, puts a face, and in this case, I know that Rita is like, outside of the Kingston area, but it doesn't matter. She's, within, it's a local example, which I think that every time that we see an example that happens in our area or in our province, it just is like, oh, okay, if they can do it, I can do it too. There is absolutely no reason why any business can't do this and approach it in much the way you've done it. And so, thank you so much for sharing that insight with us and being honest about the things you would have changed. Let me ask, is this the last campaign that you're doing, or do you think you'll ever do one in the future?
I think it's possible for us to do one again. I think now that our business is very much product based, where there's a new book each time. So if it was something that we would want to advertise, oh, this is a new idea for our book and this is growth. There are several businesses that have very much their business model is first launching on Kickstarter and then launching just regularly. So I think it's something for consideration for us for sure. Yeah. We just know we'd budget more time than we did last time for sure.
Yeah. Oh, every time we do it, we learn so many things, don't we? So
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Sydney and Jess, for sharing today. We really appreciate it. And so I know that in the future, even after we upload this to YouTube, you're probably going to get some inquiries. Thank you for sharing the contact information as well. And yeah, for anyone who's thinking of doing Kickstarter, look into it and take all of these points that the ladies have shared here today to heart. It's a lot of work, but clearly there are payoffs as well. All right, so on behalf of all of us, thank you so much and enjoy the rest of your day, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.